Today, we're going to trace the line from high-stakes international diplomacy straight to the tiny microchips that power our world. It's this incredible story, a real chain reaction that shows you just how fragile our digital lives are. And believe it or not, it all kicks off with just one failed meeting.
I mean, a meeting that, on the surface, has absolutely nothing to do with technology or artificial intelligence.
But that's the big question, right? We're going to follow the ripple effects from a single, tense negotiation room all the way to the world's most advanced factories. It's a perfect example of just how tangled and interconnected everything is in our modern world.
Okay, so our story doesn't start in Silicon Valley. Nope, it starts in Islamabad, Pakistan, with the diplomatic breakdown that pulled the first domino. So here's what went down. In April of 2026, you have U.S. and Iranian delegations sitting down for the highest-level direct talks in decades, since 1979, actually. But after a marathon 21-hour session, it all falls apart. No deal. The immediate result? Tensions shoot way up in the Strait of Hormuz, and pretty soon the U.S. Navy is out there conducting mine-clearing operations in this supercritical shipping lane. So what happened? Well, as you'd probably guess, the two sides told completely different stories. The U.S. side said Iran just flat-out refused the key terms for reopening the strait. Meanwhile, Iran's side claimed the U.S. kept moving the goalposts and couldn't be trusted. It was just a classic diplomatic deadlock, and everyone walked away empty-handed.
All right, so that's the political side. Now let's look at how that failure creates a very real, very physical problem in a global choke point. This is where the story shifts from diplomacy to straight-up disruption.
The biggest, most lasting consequence of all this instability was damage to Qatar's Ras Laffan complex. Now you have to understand, this isn't just some industrial park. This place is the single largest production hub for both liquefied natural gas, or LNG, and helium on the entire planet. It's a huge deal.
And the scale of this impact is just staggering. The disruption at Ras Laffan took between 30 and 38% of the entire global helium supply offline. Just poof. That is a massive shock to a system that so many industries really depend on.
And it wasn't just helium. We're talking about 12.8 million tons of annual LNG capacity that got sidelined too. To give you some perspective, that's about 17% of Qatar's total LNG exports. It was a huge hit to the global energy market.
And here's the real kicker. This is not a quick fix. Projections are saying it's going to take 3 to 5 years to fully repair the complex. So this supply squeeze on both helium and LNG, it's not a temporary hiccup. It's a long-term structural problem we now have to live with.
Okay, so a gas shortage. You might be thinking, what does that have to do with my computer? Well, let's connect the dots. Because this specific gas, helium, is an absolutely essential, you could say invisible ingredient for making the most advanced tech on Earth.
This is exactly why helium is basically irreplaceable for the big chip makers like TSMC and Samsung. It does 3 critical jobs. First, it's a purge gas that creates these ultra-clean environments you need. Second, its atoms are so tiny, it's perfect for finding microscopic leaks. And third, it's a vital coolant for keeping temperatures just right. There are really no good substitutes for it.
And the consequences just cascade through the whole tech ecosystem. This helium shortage means chip yields, the number of good chips you get from a wafer, could fall. It forces companies to prioritize their limited supply for high-margin stuff like AI chips over standard memory. And for those massive data centers that power the AI boom, well, energy volatility and component shortages just add major uncertainty to their costs and their timelines.
So, when you're faced with a risk like this, what do? Well, businesses and investors aren't just sitting around waiting. They are literally rewriting the supply chain playbook for a new, much more volatile world.
What we're seeing is this fundamental shift in philosophy. The old model was all about just-in-time, keeping inventory low to be as efficient as possible. The new model? It's just-in-case. It's all about building in resilience, adding inventory buffers, and finding multiple suppliers, even if it costs a little more.
And you can already see this shift in the real world. Companies are signing much longer-term LNG contracts. They're sourcing gas from more stable places, like the US and Australia. They're even investing in their own in-house helium recycling systems. It's all about building buffers and not being so dependent on a single point of failure.
So let's zoom out for a second to really grasp the bigger picture here. This isn't just a story about one gas or one facility. It's about a fundamental shift in how we have to think about the very foundations of our digital economy.
And this is the core lesson right here. For decades, companies could just sort of assume that energy and raw materials would always be there, cheap and easy. Well, that assumption is officially broken. Now, securing a stable flow of these resources has to be a core part of your business strategy. This quote just nails it. It perfectly captures this new reality. Being able to see these disruptions coming and building a resilient supply chain, that is now just as important for a company's success as creating the next amazing gadget. Resilience itself has become a huge competitive advantage.
And that really leaves us with one final and pretty critical question. This whole mess was triggered by a diplomatic failure, which impacted a gas which is now slowing down AI. It forces all of us to ask, what's the next unexpected dependency? What's the next domino? And is your supply chain ready for the next choke point?